Hello, my name is Harry Sutton. I'm a distinguished technologist with HP's Technology Services Division, and I'm here to talk about a topic I've been chasing now for some time. It's always challenging in the OpenStack environment to get people thinking about how to fix an environment that they rarely see break, if you're a user, that is. And so I really should have expanded that second title of this slide to be expanding the model to improve remedial service delivery. So this isn't about delivering services that users consume. It's about what do we do when the underlying infrastructure breaks. I like to start most of my presentations with pertinent quotes, and this one struck me as particularly apt when it comes to OpenStack and how we all need to think about how we adapt to an environment that changes as rapidly as OpenStack does. So we will find, particularly as I'll conclude this talk with in a few minutes, in our service delivery personnel, that the ability to respond rapidly to change is going to be essential for our long-term futures. So what's the problem statement here? The evolution from servers to virtual to containers to cloud environments has changed the way that we view failures. We don't think anymore in terms of break fix. We think break replace. And the pets versus cattle mindset. But even that model still requires remedial diagnostic tools and diagnostic skills. Complex systems, and OpenStack certainly qualifies for that description, have complex failure modes. Anyone who's done troubleshooting in an OpenStack environment has been through the experience of reading through multiple log files in order to find what the underlying root cause of a problem is. Those log files are the common denominator for troubleshooting activity, but they often don't contain sufficient information. Even though the log file is the common denominator in this environment, it's still, unfortunately, uncommon that developers use a serviceability or maintainability mindset in what they put into those log files. We have some level of historical information in the file. We can go back prior to a failure event and see what was happening, but it usually doesn't provide that much usable information. The syntax of the log files, particularly in projects like Neutron or Keystone, or pick an OpenStack project, is often dense. And as I mentioned, we have multiple log files that we have to look at in order to come to a root cause analysis of a particular problem. The other troubleshooting tool that's available, obviously, are core dumps, but those can have customer confidentiality concerns. There may be sensitive information that the customers don't want to allow off-premise. And again, the core dump gives you a snapshot in time at the moment of the event. It doesn't give you sufficient historical data. So what should change? Well, as I hinted in the title of this talk, I'd like to see DevOps expand to a remedial dimension that takes advantage of the user-developer collaboration that's been going on since day one in this community and include a remedial aspect to it. As we heard in yesterday's keynote speech on the Neutron project, it was the result of user feedback that resulted in improvements to this release that include things like RBAC and IPAM and other features that were pulled from the development community rather than pushed out to the user community. And I'd like to see that expand in this remedial context as well. Most, if not all, large private enterprises who sell proprietary software have this model in place already. When a product breaks in the field, The support personnel feed that information back through a closed loop system to the development personnel. I'd like to see a similar mindset adopted within the community that takes advantage of all of the troubleshooting information that's already out there, but it's isolated. It's being fed project by project back to developers. I think we should be capturing that, we should be mining it, and we should be developing tools not unlike the ELK suite that so many of us have used, Elasticsearch Logs-Kibana, to provide visualizations of issues. That's one good tool, but it still requires more understanding and expertise than the normal average user would have. A good example of a tool that I've used that many of you may have seen that gets this point across is the SE Linux troubleshooter that Dan Walsh in the SE Linux group at Red Hat came up with. SE Linux, when it first came out, was infamous for having dense, arcane log file entries that were very difficult to understand and to parse. And so in response to repeated complaints about that, they came up with this fairly elegant little tool that pops up a box on your screen when you encounter an SE Linux error and gives you pointers to any number of, 1, 2, or 3 possible causes for it. Here's something you can try to make this error go away. It's that sort of mindset that I'd like to encourage the various groups working on the OpenStack projects to think about going forward. And certainly the operators who are living and operating with this environment every day, you're the ones that are at the coalface, that are seeing the problems as they occur. You're the ones that can help feed that information back. And we will eventually, if we're not, I know we in HP are, but at a larger scale, we're going to see remedial service issues in these environments. It's critical that we capture that data, feed it back into the system to continually improve the product, the process. Most of the industry, I think, today, from a services perspective, remedial service perspective, has a similar problem. Our most experienced support people, our most senior support people, grew up in an era of hardware break-fix troubleshooting, largely in Microsoft-dominated environments, with little experience, direct experience working with Linux, working with shell scripting languages, working with object-oriented programming languages, all of the above. Our new employees that are coming into the workforce have just the opposite. They have all of those base Linux skills, but they lack in-depth technology siloed skills, complex problem-solving, troubleshooting skills. So this gives us an opportunity to leverage the skills at both ends of that spectrum and improve the overall service delivery product. There are a number of areas, potential areas within the OpenStack ecosystem where we can incorporate this closed-loop remedial feedback process. Maybe it's in the operations guide. Maybe it's in a new document called a troubleshooting guide. Maybe it's in a whole separate project or document called a service guide, although that could get pretty confusing, and remedial service guide sounds kind of cumbersome. But my goal today is to encourage thinking along these lines. Think about, if you're a designer, think about how the messages that you put into the log files could be improved to make a problem easier to find and solve. If you're an operator, think about the tools that you use to troubleshoot when things don't work the way you expect it to, and think about how those could be improved and feed that information back to the development community. And if you're a remedial service delivery resource, think about the same sort of challenges. What are the skills that you need to evolve? How can you feed that information back into the system to improve the process for the generations that are going to come behind us? Thank you.